ordinary till you see the core side of it.
And what you're looking for is the story behind the news.
We bring it to you from Lagos, the commercial capital of Nigeria.
Giving you all sides and political stories round the clock.
Every detail from the start line to the final whistle.
CoreTV News, expanding your view.
Hello, welcome to CoreTV Primetime News. I am Frank Omalape. Our top stories tonight. Inspector General of Police Sulaiman Abba warns against loitering at polling booths, insists on the vote and go home order. Also in this program, a federal high court in Abuja postponed suit on the eligibility of the All Progressive Congress presidential candidate, Muhammadu Buhari, to contest at the forthcoming polls. And the police authorities imposed 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. restriction on vehicular movement nationwide on Saturday, March 28 and April 11 elections. Outside Nigeria, German wings plane for U-9525 crashes in French Alps, leaving no survivors. And now the details. Inspector General of Police Sulaiman Abba is insisting that voters should go home after casting their votes on Saturday in spite of criticism trailing his stance. The police chief, who spoke at the National Stakeholders Summit in Abuja, said his position is fully backed by law. He consequently read out a portion of the Electoral Act which bars voters from loitering at polling units to justify his position. But representatives of political parties at the forum argue that the electorate has every right to stay about 300 meters away from the voting area.
And I repeat, I advise every voter, when you cast your vote, I advise you to go home. We'll discuss it. We'll discuss it. This is what I said, and what I said to you, or what I said to the stakeholders, to the politicians in particular, is advise against instructions and directives that will threaten the conduct of the election. That is why I'm also advising. And this advice I'm giving is resulting from what I observe in the provisions of Section 129 of the Electoral Act. 9 different types of offenses are listed therein. And if you stay back, there is the likelihood of you committing one of those 9 offenses.
It is a motive that loitering within the polling area without lawful excuse. And the question that naturally arises is, in an attempt to protect vote, would that amount to unlawful action? I think we need that clarification.
Meanwhile, the police authorities have imposed a restriction on vehicular movements nationwide on Saturday, March 28th and April 11, 2015. The restriction is from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. on the 2 days to a police restriction, spokesman Manuel Luchuku said in a statement that the restriction is part of efforts to ensure adequate security and the forthcoming general elections across the Federation. He says the total restriction of movement order applies to all except for ambulances, fire service trucks and other non-essential duties. The police also advised travelers and citizens who intend to use the roads on these days and hours to plan alternative times for their movement. And now Inspector General of Police Sulaiman Abba has directed commanders of police mobile counter-terror and special protection units to ensure adequate security during the March 28th and April 11th general elections. Addressing senior police officers, Abba charged them to discharge their duties and ensure that no ballot box is snatched within their area of command. He also disclosed that the police have created an immediate response team to check electoral violence.
I want to assure you and every member of the public that we have done enough and will continue to do more at prices perhaps that are unexpected to make sure that we protect you, we protect the electorate so that they go out there and cast their votes. And in doing this, I assure you, I want to reassure you that we will be mindful of the human rights provisions or your rights. The officers will be exercising their powers mindful of the provisions of your rights, and they will also go out there and protect these rights for you.
Ahead of Saturday's presidential election, the Independent National Electoral Commission has announced that 3 color-coded ballot boxes will be used at each polling unit. It also said 2 levels of sortings of ballot papers will be done at the end of voting to ensure that any wrongly placed ballot is placed in the right box. INEC Chairman Atari Jega made this known in Abuja at the final briefing section for representatives of all political parties and other stakeholders.
On March 28th, 3 ballot boxes will be used in each polling unit and voting point. Ballot box with the red cover lid is for putting a thumb-printed ballot paper by a voter for the presidential election. Ballot box with black cover lid is for putting thumb-printed ballot paper by a voter for the senatorial election. And the green ballot box is for putting thumb-printed ballot paper by a voter for the House of Representatives election. Each ballot paper for each of these 3 sets of elections has corresponding color stripes to assist voters in putting the right ballot paper into the right ballot box. For each polling unit or voting point, there is a designated official called an overseer, whose primary job is to ensure that the voters put the ballot paper into the right ballot box. Political parties need to factor this into their last-minute campaigns in order to help minimize putting the ballot papers into the wrong ballot boxes.
In the meantime, the Independent National Electoral Commission says the card reader stolen in Zamfara State cannot be useful to the culprits and their sponsors. This, according to the Commission, is because it has not been configured to any polling unit. Spokesman for the INEC Chairman Kaudido told CoreTV News in Abuja that the theft would not affect elections in the state.
Our database cannot be hacked because they are not online. Our card readers cannot be hacked either because they are not online. And they do not, contrary to what people think, the register is not stored on the card reader. Because one needs to clear that misconception. I've had even a very highly placed people say that, well, the register of a polling unit will be on the card reader. It's not true. There's nothing on the card reader. What the card reader does is to read the biometric chip in the card. The law provides that everybody be allotted to a polling unit. And so the card, the permanent voter card, or even temporary, when you are given the voter's card was given on the basis of allotment to a particular polling unit. There's no voter card that is free-ranging. In other words, that you can use it anywhere. You can't pick it and go and use it in an open space or in a house, for instance. That is not a polling unit. There's no card reader. There's no card, permanent voter card, that has been coded like that. So they are issued on the basis of allotment to specific polling units, and then the card readers are configured to specific polling units. Every polling unit has a card reader. Every voting point has a card reader. There's no room for a stray card reader because every voting point already has its card reader. So where will a floating card reader come in to the process?
And now a federal high court in Abuja has decided to hear objections and motions in the suit challenging the eligibility of the presidential candidate of the All Progressive Congress, Muhammadu Buhari, for Saturday's presidential election. It has, however, not fixed a date for hearing. Presiding Judge Justice Adeni Ademola also set March 25 date for ruling on whether parties seeking to be joined as co-defendant in the suit will be allowed. But plaintiff counsel Michael Zekome expressed objections to the application for joinder. He described Oluwa Adigboru and others seeking to join the suit as made some.
All the motions, all the series of objections they filed, some of them very frivolous, that they should be taken in one fell swoop and determined side by side with our own originating someone seeking to disqualify General Buhari from contesting the elections. In other words, the litany, the line of cases, the legion of cases is to that effect, starting from Senate President against Nzeribe, which I actually handled as far back as 2003, which the Supreme Court relied on in Diapalong versus Darie and in Nakoji and Adeleke, and in a series of other cases. He said to save time, to save resources, to save energy, and particularly in election matters and pre-election matters, which are sui generis, because they are in a class of their own. You should take this matter all together. So all their intention to have this matter delayed has been defeated very roundly by today's brilliant ruling by the Honorable Justice Ademola.
The law prescribes how he can be served, where the action can be or should be instituted, what the processes should carry or bear. All these are completely bare in the processes filed on him. As a result of that, he put in his application challenging the way he was served. And we said, unless we first cross that hurdle of how he was served, you cannot say you are hearing anything, because he has not even filed his defense. But the court, in its wisdom, said he will hear everything, regardless of whether or not a man who is challenging the way he was served or has been served has filed any defense or not.
The fifth defendant is the one I refer to as Oluwa Adigboru, whose application for joinder has just been moved by the court this morning. So it's only two of us. The person that brought this case against the first defendant, what is his interest? What is his role in the enthronement of democracy in Nigeria? Does he have more interest than Ebunlu Adegboruwa the fifth applicant that is seeking to be joined? Not at all.
You're also watching CoreTV Primetime News. After the break, the Transformation Ambassador of Nigerian Group, Jerab, support for President Goodluck Jonathan's re-election bid. Find out more after this time out. Stay with us.
Election time don't come. Time to vote don't come. Your vote tonight, your power. Oh. Make you use them well. Lagos State APC. Don't do better. Transport, get better school, hospital cell, better economy, plenty jobs, security, clean environment, for continuity in excellence in Lagos State. Vote for APC, APC, All Progressives Congress, APC. Vote for APC, 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 APC. For Akinwumi Ambode, for governor.
Vote for the consolidator, Akinwumi Ambode, for governor of Lagos State. Vote APC.
Vote for change. Vote APC.
When I was younger, I can remember a time when corruption was a thing of shame.
I dream of a future where we won't have challenges with electricity.
I'm voting for Buhari because he understands our past and our history.
I dream of a time where we're going to have free and honest election.
I remember a time when 1 naira was equal to £1.
I am voting for Buhari because we need change for a brighter future.
Nigeria, APC, change.
It's still CoreTV Primetime News, live from our Lagos studios. A quick reminder of our top stories. Inspector General Police Sulaiman Abba warns against loitering at polling booths, insists on the vote and go home order. A federal high court in Abuja postponed suits on the eligibility of the All Progressive Congress presidential candidate Muhammadu Buhari to contest at the forthcoming polls. And the police authorities imposed 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. restriction on vehicular movement nationwide on Saturday, March 28th and April 11 elections. You can also reach us on our social media platforms like our Facebook page is facebook.com/CoreTV News. You can also follow at CoreTV News NG. And for live streaming, log on to youtube.com/CoreTV, leave a space, then news. And now the All Progressive Congress has won against any orchestrated last-minute disqualification of its presidential candidate Muhammadu Buhari in order to pave the way for an easy victory for President Goodluck Jonathan or even another postponement of the elections. APC made this allegation following the adjournment of the consolidated suit seeking to disqualify the former military head of state. The judgment on the suit praying the court to disqualify Buhari from the presidential race for various allegations surrounding his certificate was earlier fixed for Tuesday at the Federal High Court in Abuja. The judgment is expected to be delivered on Wednesday. In a statement in Abuja, the major opposition party, through its National Publicity Secretary Lai Mohammed, warned that if the court ruling proved unfavorable to its presidential standard-bearer, there would likely be a problem in the country. The statement stated that in addition to other reasons, the 6-week postponement of the general elections might have been used by those who did not want the polls to hold in the first instance to bribe the court. Lai says anyone who will disqualify a presidential candidate on the eve of an election can only have one and only one purpose for that: to trigger chaos and pandemonium across the country. Perhaps this is the reason for the deployment of troops across the country to crack down on possible protests and create confusion. End of quote. And a federal high court in Lagos has mandated the Nigerian Communications Commission, NCC, to pay 500 million to the All Progressive Congress for suspending the party's presidential campaign fundraising platform. Apart from NCC, the other judgment debtors are Etisalat, MTN Nigeria Limited, Globalcom Limited, Airtel Nigeria, and Visifund Communications Limited. In a judgment on a fundamental human rights enforcement suit filed by APC, Justice Ibrahim Buba held that the NCC acted beyond its powers in suspending the fundraising platform of the APC, which was meant to generate funds to prosecute the presidential bid of the party. NCC had ordered telecoms firms Etisalat, MTN, Glo, Airtel, and Visifund to stop running the SMS code platform of 35350 created by APC to raise funds. Issuing the directive, NCC warned the telecoms firms against running political promotions that would portray them as being partisan. In his judgment, Justice Buba condemned the directive, declaring it illegal, null and void. The judge also awarded 500 million naira damages against the defendants jointly and severally. The judge further dismissed the preliminary objections and counter-affidavits filed against the suit by the defendant. And the originating motion, the party had urged the court to award 25 billion naira damages against the defendant for violating fundamental rights of its members. Away from that now, the Transformation Ambassador of Nigeria has again reaffirmed their support for President Goodluck Jonathan ahead of the March 28 presidential election in a rally it organized at the National Stadium in Lagos. Our correspondent Oluwaseyi Adegoke was there and our reports.
It was like a fanfare at the National Stadium, Surulere, Lagos, as Transformation Ambassador of Nigeria, a group which has taken upon itself the role of rebranding President Jonathan as he seeks re-election. TAN continues to sensitize Nigerians ahead the March 28 and April 11 general elections. In his speech, Vice Chairman of the group, Ifeanyi Uba, described President Jonathan as a leader of integrity that has good intentions for Nigerians. The Lagos State governorship candidate of the PDP, in his usual style, implored the people to ensure they vote the PDP at the polls.
You can see the crowd. After Saturday, when they don't announce Jonathan, we will just go party in April 11. You see, my brother said we are coming back again. Yes, sir. When we don't win Saturday, all of us will come back. We will begin to celebrate in advance. Because that April 11, that one will carry gold.
In a few days' time, the popularity of President Goodluck Jonathan and all other PDP candidates will be tested in the polls. Oluwaseyi Adegoke, CoreTV News, Lagos.
And our coalition of concerned Nigerians convener and national coordinator of OPC, Gani Adams, has again decried claims that the removed Jega protest staged last week was violent and sponsored by the PDP. He said this while addressing members of the coalition in Lagos. Our correspondent, Patience Ajiboye, was selling our reports.
In his speech, OPC leader Gani Adams says President Goodluck Jonathan is worthy of the votes of every Yoruba indigene.
While some section of mischievous people are trying to rubbish our position at the National Conference, the implementation of the resolution by Federal Executive Council is indeed attestation to the trustworthiness of Mr. President. And for the singular act of keeping his promise, you will agree with me that President Goodluck Jonathan deserves support of every Yoruba sons and daughters and Nigeria entirely.
Explaining why the March 16 protest was necessary, Adams says Jega has collaborated with the APC to ensure a large distribution of PVCs in the north.
Samfara have got almost 96% of PVC. Bauchi have got 95% of their PVC, but Ogun State here is just 61%. That was the three State they gave an example, and I'm very sure Lagos State collection of PVC in Lagos State is not up to 75%. Ondo State is not up to 72%. Oyo is less than 70. Osun is less than 70. Ekiti is less than 70. Zamfara 96. Bauchi 95. All the northern area have got not less than 90% of their PVC. You can judge from that.
Nollywood actress and member of Coalition of Concerned Nigerians, Rachel Oniga, says Jonathan, just as Rome was not built in a day, should be given a second chance to carry out the good works he started.
Let us know that so many things have gone wrong in this country and it cannot be solved in just one day. He is doing his best. He's a human being. Fine, everybody have their flaws. People around him who are supposed to, who he has delegated duties to, some might not be doing their jobs properly. So we cannot blame that on him. At the same time, we can say, yes, you are a leader. If anything goes wrong, you should be held responsible.
Convener of the group, Gani Adams, insists the Coalition of Concerned Nigerians is not an OPC body, but just a group of people seeking credible leadership for Nigeria. Members of the group include movie practitioners, comprising Igbos and Yorubas, as well as other non-Yorubas. Patience Ajiboye, CoreTV News, Lagos.
The Independent National Electoral Commission in Osun State has spiked the distribution of PVCs in the state at 73.5%. Adekunle Ogunmola, resident electoral commissioner, made this disclosure at a press briefing. Our correspondent Rashid has details.
With the PVC debut in Ekiti State, Osun was next to sample the use of permanent voter cards in its governorship election. This puts Osun in a vantage position for high PVC collection rate. Before the 2014 gubernatorial election, Osun achieved almost 70% collection rate. The latest statistics from INEC reveals that out of the more than 1.4 million registered voters in the state, a little over 1 million have collected their PVCs.
Right now it's about 73.5%. And which is quite impressive, judging from the fact that the gubernatorial election attracted a lot of interest from the indigenes of Osun State, and one expected that at that time, most of those that are interested in the electoral process will have collected.
One wonders what seems to be responsible for this seeming apathy in the collection of PVCs between August 2014 and now.
But the turn-up has not been encouraging at all. For instance, today, I've seen just 7 people come for their cards. And we have, at least if I can like gauge the amount of cards that we have here, we should have up to like 1,000 cards, if not more. So, but people have not really been turning up for their cards.
You know, we had an election in August. So most of our people have their PVCs, and I have my PVC. We don't have that problem. So you see, our own INEC is not that inundated with people. But in general terms, if you look at the Southwest, the PVC collection is skewed more towards the north.
But politicians have not relented in sensitizing and mobilizing their supporters in the collection of PVCs, knowing full well that without PVCs, no votes.
The gubernatorial election is more important to the people of Osun State than any other election. At a particular point, our people had to invite people that were moving around, that please come, look at these cards. Can you identify any of these people? Because this is your environment. And some people say, oh yes, they were able to identify about 6 of such people. These 5, they've gone back to the north. This one is in Lagos, that type of thing.
We've been on the radio, we've been on the TV, we've been advocating, we've been convincing the people to go and collect their PVCs, and I can assure you that they're collecting their PVCs.
Our people, they are always ready. We have collected enough, and even tomorrow, people can still come. Today, they are collecting. People are coming home. If you are a familiar voter in Ijesa land, there are no imported voters this time around.
With this current collection rate in Osun, the state seems set for the general elections, all things being equal. Rashid, CoreTV News, Oshogbo.
Now, a few days to the rescheduled election, members of the civil society group in Edo State have intensified awareness campaign on the need for Nigerians to come out en masse to exercise their franchise. Omobudiago, the coordinator general of the civil society organization, will lead others on a sensitization rally across major streets in Benin Metropolis. Said the aim is to help complement effort of INEC in voter education. Members of the civil society will trek around major streets Benin City in company of security operatives to share views and sensitize the public on the need to come out and vote on the set date, called on people who have collected their permanent voter cards to ensure they vote. Coordinator of the group, Imobudiago, says the era has gone where activities of folks determine the fate and aspirations of the people, adding that only their PVC and the card reader can do the magic.
Every vote now they count. Power has come back to the people. Every vote now they count because of the card reader machine. Nobody tweeting your vote. Then you cannot go vote maybe 100 number that they count because of the card reader. So we for civil society, we they support the card reader and they must use them. Because they don't give power to the people. I said, give power to who?
It will be recalled that the State Resident Electoral Commissioner, Mikey Guinea, had informed the public in one of the interactive sections with civil groups that the only challenge they are facing is for the people to endeavor to come out and vote, stressing that previous records indicate that fewer people voted compared to the voter cards collected. National leader of the All Progressive Congress, Bola Tinubu, was in Kano on a one-day visit to commission 2 projects completed by Governor Rabiu Kwankwaso. The project includes the Hadejia roundabout and the new administrative block of the government building named after him. The former Lagos State governor described Kwankwaso as a shining example of what APC stands for.
My message is that they should see the fourth coming election as a common sense revolution. Common sense revolution. To reform, rechange, get relief, security of lives and property, eliminate corruption and deception.
Coming our brother, our friend, Asuwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu to Kano, especially that he is here personally to commission this very historic institution here in Gabasawa local government. Election that is coming on Saturday is so crucial for Gabasawa local government, Kano State, and of course Nigeria.
You're still watching CoreTV Primetime News. We take another break now. We return with business, sport, and other stories inside Nigeria. Stay with us.
The power to change Nigeria is in your hands. Now is the time to go out and vote. Vote to Buhari, vote for change. Chandela Bibo, we talk about change. So you vote to give Makamba way. Say no to corruption. Say no to insecurity. No to unemployment. No to inequality. Vote for Buhari. Nigeria. APC.
The army was not supposed to be visible or to be around any polling unit unless there is a breakdown of law and order and they have been invited by the Inspector General of Police.
That elections are sheltered in Africa is no news. But in Nigeria, it comes with consequences.
Against the will of one man.
Consequences that have toggled the nation's politics and may shape how Nigeria elects.
This is the year of PDP.
The momentum gathers.
When we promise, we deliver.
The fireworks is unending.
We did it and continue to do it.
55 years this year, and in her fourth republic, this is Nigeria's 5th general elections. All the action, all the news, the updates, and the news behind the news we will bring to you live from the field and in the studio on CoreTV News as Nigeria elects.
And in business now, the Monetary Policy Committee has retained the monetary policy rate at 13%. The Central Bank Governor, Godwin Emefiele, expressed concern about the widespread use of the dollar for local transactions in the country. They insisted that the meeting that conducting transactions in dollars rather than in naira is legal and the issue will be dealt with. The committee also retained the CRO cash reserve ratio on private and public sector deposits at 20% and 75% respectively.
The external sector development. Following the closure of the official retail Dutch auction system window of the foreign exchange market on 18th of February 2015, the foreign exchange market is now unified. Consequently, the Naira exchange rate opened at 180 Naira to the dollar and closed at 198 Naira to the dollar, with a daily average rate of 198 Naira to the dollar. This represented a depreciation of 17 Naira 9 kobo, or 9.04% for the period. The committee expressed satisfaction with the impact of the decisions taken to harmonize the foreign exchange market. As a consequence of those actions, the interbank exchange rate has stabilized after an initial adjustment. The committee, however, expressed concern about the wide divergence between the interbank and the bureau de change market rates, which provides an avenue for arbitrage and speculative activities in the market. The committee also expressed concern about the outlook for growth, which had moderated partly due to the effects of low oil prices, Naira exchange rate depreciation, and election-related concerns. The committee was, however, optimistic that the situation would improve once elections were successfully conducted, with the expected improvements in business confidence.
Now, the United States Agency for International Development, USAID, on Tuesday restated its commitment to support Nigerian farmers in boosting cocoa production towards diversification of the nation's economy. The agency's Director of Economic Growth and Environment, Matthew Burton, said in Lagos that cocoa was Nigeria's key export that urgently needed to be developed, especially now that the price of oil had fallen. According to him, increase in the production of cocoa will also boost local and international consumption of the product. He, however, noted the nation's cocoa industry had in the last 10 to 15 years witnessed an underinvestment, and the agency was bringing in large-scale investment for the development of the sector. And the Treasury bill market now, the Central Bank of Nigeria says in a statement on Tuesday, the federal government plans to raise 97.81 billion in Treasury bills at the auctions on Wednesday. The bank says it will issue 14.03 billion in the 3 months debt note, 33.78 billion in a 6-month, and 50 billion of the 1-year note. The results are expected to be released on Thursday. Let's now join Sabena Izoku for Stock Market Report.
CoreTV News Stock Market Report.
Hello there and welcome to the Stock Market Report segment with me, Sabena Izuku. Equity transaction on the floor of the Nigeria Stock Exchange ended on a positive note today as the Nigerian All Shares Index appreciated by 0.27% to close at 29,584 basis points. The market capitalization increased in the same manner to close at 9.87 trillion naira. A total volume of 211.43 million units of shares valued at 2.85 billion naira were exchanged in 3,880 deals. Pizza cost and top the gainers chart to close at 25 naira 55 copper with 1 naira 12 copper price difference, followed by Flour Mill, Stanbic IBTC, Dangote Cement, and Nigerian Brewers. On the flip side, Seplat all top the losers chart, followed by Nestle, Guinness, Cement Company of North Nigeria, and United Africa Company of Nigeria. Meanwhile, Zenith Bank traded the highest volume of 47.5 million, valued at 792.6 million naira, followed by First City Monument Bank, Transcorp, Guarantee Trust Bank, and United Bank for Africa. Just before we wrap up the stock market report, here's the currency trade for today. I am Savannah Izuku.
CoreTV News Stock Market Report.
Thank you, Sabina. Over to sports now. The prestigious Akwa Ibom International Stadium, you welcome alive on Wednesday when the Super Eagles of Nigeria and the Cranes of Uganda lock hands in a prestigious international friendly match. The last time the venue witnessed elemental explosion of football proportion was when the Super Eagles hosted the Bafana in the 30th Africa Cup of Nations qualifier on Wednesday, 19th November 2014. The match ended 2-2. However, Super Eagles goalie Vincent Nyama will be looking to make history on many fronts if he's picked for the role between the goalposts. Nyama will be winning his landmark 100 senior cap for the country at the match, and also in front of his own people in New York Township will be facing off against the Cranes for the first time. And contrary to the stipulation of a letter from the Football Association of Zambia to the Nigerian Football Federation that it will host the second leg of the final round, second leg qualifier of the 11th All-Africa Games in Ndola on Saturday, April 4, CAF has ruled that the match will go ahead on the weekend of April 10 to 12. This directly means the Dream Team have more time to prepare for the showdown at the level in Wanawasa Stadium, Ndola, after both teams tied 0-0 in the first leg at the National Stadium, Abuja on Sunday. Coach Samson CRCL and Words have a job on their hands, as NFF President Amaju Pinnick has stated in clear terms that the team must qualify for the men's football tournament of the African Games slated for Congo-Brazzaville 3-18 September this year. And now Michel Platini has been re-elected as UEFA president for a third term in a newly conducted election. The Frenchman, who first took the helm in 2007, has been given the mandate until 2019 by the European governing body. After thanking his peers for their trust and support, he insisted he will do what he can to help FIFA regain credibility amidst a string of corruption allegations in the World Games corridors of power. UEFA president has also warned of a return to hooliganism, dark days as he was re-elected unopposed for a third term as president of UEFA. And outside Nigeria now, the German wings plane carrying 150 people has crashed in the French Alps on its way from Barcelona to Düsseldorf. The Airbus A320 flight 4U-525 went down between Dane and Barcelona. There are no survivors, officials say. The black box flight recorder has been found, the French Interior Minister says. The cause of the crash is not known and the plane did not send a distress signal. The dead include 16 children from a German school exchange trip. French, Spanish and German leaders have expressed shock over the incidents. A recovery team has reached the crash site, but there are fears that a looming storm could hamper its work. Bruce Robin, a prosecutor from Marseille, says that he had seen the wreckage of the aircraft from a helicopter. The body of the plane is in a state of destruction. There is not one intact piece of wing or fuselage, he says. Well, and that's it on CoreTV Primetime News tonight. Just before we go, a recap of our major headlines. We told you that Inspector General of Police Sulaiman Abba warns against loitering at polling booth, insists on the vote and go home order. We also brought you a report that a federal high court in Abuja postponed suit on the eligibility of the All Progressive Congress presidential candidate Muhammadu Buhari to contest at the forthcoming polls. And finally tonight, the police authorities imposed the 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. restriction on vehicular movement nationwide on Saturday, March 28 and April 11 elections. And as they join the fight against violence and go out and vote peacefully. Many thanks for watching. I am Frank Omalape on behalf of the entire news crew. Have a good night rest. Bye-bye.